I got invited to speak at TEDx Boulder, and I used the opportunity to talk about something the autism community generally avoids. So I really hope you'll hear me out on this one.
Everyone's story begins with a mother, and mine is certainly no exception. In the very beginning, my mother knew something was different about me. My world was too loud, too fast, too confusing, and we didn't have the words to explain it. Entering school, it didn't take long for me to start drowning, both academically and socially, unable to keep up with demands.
Oh, and you should know, most of that audience had no idea who I was, so I had to spend the first part answering the question, why should we listen to her?
As the gaps between me and my peers continued to widen, so did my awareness of them. Why can't I just like what they like and do what they do? Why won't the other kids go birdwatching? Why am I so stupid? At the ripe old age of 9, during challenging moments, I questioned, would life ever get any better? My mom raised concerns about autism with the doctors, but this was the early 2000s, so I like to joke that the doctors must have believed at the time that girls couldn't catch autism. So I continued to slip through the cracks until 2007, when my uncle paid for extensive academic and psychological testing in Orlando. My expression in this picture is reflective of the fact that prior to exploring Disney with my family, I had to play with the nice ladies for a couple of days. It was at this time that I received a diagnosis of autism and more learning disabilities than I can count. See what I did there? Not long after that is when things began to gain some upward momentum. At the age of 13, my life was forever changed when I joined Project Hope's small private school for kids on the autism spectrum. Project Hope saw my individual needs and strengths, and so they built an internship just for me, helping the teachers with the younger students while I worked on my own goals. After graduating, I became certified as a registered behavior technician, and I've been on staff with Project Hope since 2015. I've worked with clients as young as 3 and as old as 20. My clinical experience is wide, ranging from teaching individuals who use a device to communicate, to providing community, home, and clinical support for clients with extensive histories of dangerous behavior, to working on higher-level social and executive functioning skills at an adult level. As you may know, I got the opportunity to participate in the Netflix series Love on the Spectrum. That experience opened several doors for me, but unfortunately, none of those doors had a boyfriend behind them. That said, one of those open doors led to the expansion, really the explosion of my social media. Before Netflix, I had a decently large following on my Facebook page. After Netflix, I realized people were listening, and in my view, that came with responsibility. My unusual blend of personal experience and clinical work gave me a voice that could reach people who might not otherwise ever learn about autism. Having a unique perspective and a highly engaged online platform meant I couldn't just talk about the easily digestible, polished sides of autism. I had to speak the whole truth.
After I told them who I was and why that matters, I had to get really honest, really fast.
And the truth is, you aren't seeing equal representation of the autism spectrum online. If you can use your native language fluently, follow a variety of social rules, keep yourself safe without adult supervision, but occasionally punch yourself in the head when things go wrong, like me, you're perceived as having the just a little different type of autism. But if you can't express yourself reliably, struggle to understand language, and occasionally bite the nearest person out of desperation when you have a headache, you're perceived as having the disordered type of autism. Those of us perceived as just a little different star in movies, theatrical productions, and TikTok videos. Those of us perceived as disordered are tucked away in medical journals, case studies, and their families' desperate searches for help. The proposed term for this group is profound autism, and everyone thinks it's just a small portion of the autism spectrum, but it's not. According to the CDC, a little more than 26% of autistic folks meet the criteria for profound autism. You may not see them online like me, but they exist and they matter. I've spent over a decade working as a therapist around profoundly autistic individuals, and I can tell you getting services is hard. Getting effective ones is harder. As you would find it to be logical, most support systems, both clinically and educationally, are set up like ladders. The more social, self-care, and communication skills you master, the higher you climb, the more independence you'll reach. But here's the issue. What happens if after years of dedicated practice, a young autistic adult still hasn't made it to the top? What if, even with involved family members, competent staff, and a measurable amount of motivation, our young autistic adult is still stuck at the bottom of the ladder in terms of their overall ability level? Currently, every state has the same answer to that question: job training. They present yet another ladder: submit an application, prepare for the interview, learn to do the work, earn a paycheck. And that sounds great, in theory. However, somebody has to say it, and apparently it's going to be me. For certain segments of the autistic population, job training sucks. It seems as though no one has asked the question, what if you don't understand money? And I don't mean because you're 20 and you don't recognize the significance of paying your credit card bill. I mean, what if you're 20 and don't recognize the value of a $100 bill in comparison to a $5 bill, despite years of dedicated practice? I mean, at a fundamental level, due to the cognitive differences in your brain, what if you truly don't grasp why you would ever need money for anything other than the counting exercises your teachers and therapists make you do? This is the part where I'd like to point out that we could all go around the room and point out the benefits of having a job. I'd start with the obvious: we get paid. You might add, work gives us a sense of purpose. My job provides social interaction. It gives me satisfaction to learn new things. However, this is the part where I wish I could not so gently remind vocational training programs that for folks still stuck at the bottom of the ladder, they may not be able to conceptualize our underlying values for employment, even after years of instruction and therapy. Someone else has been given guardianship over them, meaning their consent or even basic willingness is not needed. If you don't find value in work, haven't consented to do any, and have no reliable means of communication, it seems obvious that you may respond with screaming, physical aggression, or even self-injury if pushed to participate. Ultimately, I believe it's cruel at worst and inhumane at best to take folks who don't know what money is and insist that they learn job skills if they don't enjoy doing the work. If you can get on board with my initial premise, even if it's just for the moment, that job training sucks for some autistic folks, it would lead you to ask, so what should happen instead? While everyone can't work in the traditional sense, as in fulfilling specific duties in exchange for money, everyone can contribute positively to their environments. On a conceptual level, positive contribution means putting away the skill acquisition ladder and instead grabbing a step stool. Both metaphorically and literally, things that require a step stool to reach are easier to grab than the ones that necessitate a ladder. On a practical level, positive contribution means learning ways to bring joy to others, offer companionship, help with domestic tasks, and participate in group routines. It's important to collectively recognize that setting our goal within reach of a step stool in place of an entire ladder is not an act of forfeiting progress. Rather, it's a necessary calibration that moves progress from our sincerest hopes and dreams and instead brings it to an attainable reality. And in reality, when the tallest ladders with the most tightly spaced rungs aren't compatible with how someone's brain works, we owe it to them to shift our idea of what it looks like to contribute. For example, positive contributions within reach of a step stool might include things like learning friendly gestures like high fives, thumbs up, or waves as a way to greet people, setting a table before a meal, keeping someone company during a shared activity, helping care for plants, moving and carrying objects from one location to another. The desire to contribute on some level is one that is universal. We all want our actions to make an impact on the environments we're in and on the people around us. And while one could argue that measuring the value of contribution in dollars is a strong pillar of American culture, we must remind ourselves that it's an incomplete metric which leaves out countless contributions that enrich lives but can't be measured in dollars. If traditional job ladders don't work, let's find some meaningful step stools for this segment of the autistic population, some that are based on shared values and attainable goals. Somebody had to say it.